It's something that often goes unsaid, but 1 in 5 Canadians struggle with their mental health. There's at least one day a year when that conversation gets the spotlight. Let's Talk Day was yesterday, and Kayla Kozan took the opportunity to share her story. She joins us now on the line to tell us more. Hi, Kayla.
Good morning, Becca. How are you?
I'm cold. Well, not really cold, but it's a cold day outside. Can you tell us what happened to you back in 2014?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was the summer of 2014. I was 23 years old. And, nothing too out of the ordinary. I kind of had a pretty normal life. I just graduated university. I moved to Toronto and I started working at a software company there. And I'd been working for only less than 6 months, actually, when I suffered a very severe nervous breakdown. And so I was forced to leave my job, my friends, all my belongings in Toronto immediately, and I flew home to be with my family in Regina. And it became clear over a few days that it wasn't just kind of stress-induced or anything like that, but it was kind of more of a medical emergency. At that point, I was being treated in Regina. I was hospitalized for 23 days, and then I was diagnosed with a mental illness, bipolar disorder. And so, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, can you tell me more about the details of how your work, how did the people at work handle that?
Absolutely. So my office was very small, only 6 people at the time, because I had to leave so abruptly, it was difficult to communicate back with them exactly what was happening. Even from my side, I didn't really have my mental stability in my own grip at the time, so I couldn't really communicate back with them. The messages actually were going through my parents, so it was my parents just keeping my boss informed. This is where she's at, and she'll be off work for a long time.
And tell me, what did that mean to you to have that regular communication with your boss at work and that he was listening and he cared about how you were doing?
Oh, it meant everything. And I think sometimes what happens to people when they're off work is I was very embarrassed at the way that I had to leave. I knew it wasn't my fault, but I felt like I'd done something wrong. There was a reason I couldn't go back to work. And so to have someone, even just the sentiment to say, okay, well, just let us know, keep us informed. We want to know about your health, not exactly just what day you can get back to work. It meant everything.
So tell me more about your boss. He reached out to you.
Yeah, so I'd been off work for about 3 months, and I was ready to go back. I really wanted to. I felt like I had my medications in place, my mood had been stable, and I was going to return to work. And it just almost a week before, I slipped into a deep depressive episode. And again, it was clear I wouldn't be able to go back to work. And this time, really, the question was in how long and if I would be able to go back at all. So that was about 3 months out. After being off work for 4 months, my boss reached out to me, and I'd been in touch with him over this time, but especially during the depressive episode, I lost my confidence, and I was only emailing them back and forth, short emails here and there, just updating them basically on what my return to work schedule would be like, but I didn't even know myself. I really wasn't sure that it was going to be possible. I received a call from my boss. I saw his number on my phone and I was a little nervous because I hadn't spoke to him on the phone in months. And I expected the worst, like maybe something was going wrong where they weren't able to accommodate me coming back or something with my short-term disability. But I picked up and he was really chipper, and he basically just was like, hey, hope you're doing well. I just really want to make sure you know you're invited to the holiday party. And then he told me, it's going to be here and it's at this time and it's in Toronto. And so I was almost speechless, like just to be invited and to have somebody just kind of reach out and say, hey, we're still thinking about you. We haven't forgot about you. Meant a lot. And so since the party was in Toronto and I was in Regina at the time with my parents, on the phone, I was like, thank you so much. This means a lot, but there's no way I can attend. but thank you. And we chatted just a little bit more and hung up. And so, yeah, I mean, I felt elated, and I was about to go text my parents and just say, how nice it was for them to do that. And just a minute later, my boss's number came up on my phone again. And so I picked up, and he, again, just really chipper, and also very respectful, just kind of laying the groundwork. The thing he said basically was like, hey, you don't need to decide right now, and no pressure, but would you be able to come to the holiday party if we paid for the flight? And it just made me so happy.
So that's remarkable. I mean, he clearly has a lot of sensitivity to this issue. Were you ever able to ask him later, is it because he has more knowledge, or he was educated, or he has someone in his family? Because clearly this is a man who understood this issue really well and had sort of the tools to deal with it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a number of things. My boss was running a small company, but in the past he'd ran a larger company. And I think just being on the employer end, he's seen things like this happen. And I think everybody knows if it hasn't happened to you, it's happened to someone close to you. And so the whole team actually was just so respectful. And I think they really did a good job in educating themselves on how to integrate someone back into a workplace going through a diagnosis like this.
It's remarkable. And before I cut you off, you were talking about bipolar. Could you talk more about, so that when we talk about people who may suffer from this, what you'd like them to know from your story?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it applies to bipolar, but any real serious mental illness condition. I learned a lot along the way. I really thought I was in charge of kind of my own timeline. And if I just wanted to go back to work hard enough, I would be able to. But I definitely learned that mental illness doesn't necessarily just follow your carefully laid career plans. And you really need to take the time to make sure you're stable and make sure everything's in line, your medications and your social kind of just being part of your community again, and then integrating back to work. It takes a long time, and I think that's something I didn't know when I was first diagnosed, but I have a lot more empathy now for people who are off work. I don't think people ever want to be off work, and I think there's this kind of misconception sometimes with mental illness that person is, they're lazy or they're not trying to get back to work, but it's really hard to know what someone's going through behind the scenes, and I think people are trying really hard.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, Kayla.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
That was Kayla Kozan. She's a Regina woman living and working in Toronto. She shared her story yesterday for Bell Let's Talk Day off of her own mental health struggles and how her colleagues supported her.